As a guy who struggles with narcissism and being a parent, like that can be extremely hard. It's extremely hard for someone out there if they're not self-aware or if they don't have a clue of what they're struggling with. For me, it's still hard knowing what I struggle with and knowing the challenges that I face each and every day. So that when my daughter has big emotions or when she's struggling with certain types of feelings, it's hard for me at times to engage with those. It's hard for me not to just shove those to the side and just be like, you know what, that was your own choice. So if you cry, you cry. So that really is the challenge at times. It is trying to figure out how to show empathy, how to feel empathy, how to even get to the place of like, okay, she's crying. There must be a logical reason why she's crying, not like, who cares why you're crying? That's the hard part each and every day of being able to get to the place of, you don't like what just happened? Well, that sucks because that was your choice. She needs a little bit more help than that. Emotional intelligence. Like, what is this? Like, this is stuff that people don't talk about anymore and that people definitely don't deal with when it comes to narcissistic relationships, because this is how narcissists are formed. They don't realize the emotions that they have and the emotions that have been developed and cultured over a period of time aren't bad. They can actually take those emotions and be able to turn them into something good or be able to make an action that's something good. But when they only focus on those feelings and emotions and how to run away and how to get rid of them as fast as possible, you get to the place where you have people that lie, that manipulate, they gaslight, everything like that, because they've never been taught how to deal with their emotions. They've never been taught how to develop emotions, how to develop feelings, and how to not just react off of those, but how to live in charge of those. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a cut and dried answer. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's not always consistent to be able to say like, hey, they always do, hey, they don't. I've had times where I've wanted to go back to a person, but I haven't because they blocked me. I didn't have access. A lot of times they go psycho at the very end because they realize that all their lies, all their bullshit, everything that they've been trying to just make you think that you're the psycho one is actually coming to the surface, and that they're starting to be known as the person who's actually the person who is destroying a marriage, a relationship, whatever it might be. And at that moment, there's like a switch that flips in their head, and they're going to try to do everything in their power to be able to get that other person back when they know there's no chance of getting that person back, or convincing them to stay, or gaslighting them or manipulating them into stay in the relationship. Then a lot of times it turns to rage, just like you'd have a 2-year-old that gets mad because someone took their favorite toy. Like, that's the type of rage that comes out. It's just pure rage and frustration that they're not getting their way in that moment because they realize that their control, their manipulation, and their gaslighting is slowly falling away and they're no longer in charge. I'd say that's very dangerous. You're probably going to get hurt. There's probably going to be something where they're going to lash back, where they're going to come at you, where they're going to go on a smear campaign, like whatever it is. But if they feel like they're actually starting to be targeted, you better watch out. I know some narcissists that they're not going to get mad at you, they're just going to get even. Or some narcissists, they don't even care about that, they're just going to rage at you. Or some narcissists, they're going to go off the chain and start going after you by talking to your friends, talking to your family, like different things like that. Be very careful. Plus, you don't want to stoop to their level. You don't want to get to the place where you're fighting fire with fire, because all it does is make a bigger fire. Like, you're not going to get anywhere when you're fighting with a narcissist, especially if you're stooping to their level. It's just going to escalate. It's just going to make it worse. Most narcs out there will tell you that they're not insecure. They'll say that they don't struggle with insecurities. They say they don't struggle with, self-harm, with suicidal thoughts, anything like that, because their ego is so high. They think of themselves so highly that it doesn't even matter. But when it comes down to it, there's moments, there's small instances where they realize what they've done, who they've hurt, how it's happened, and they get to the place where they are insecure because if someone actually pulled back their mask and actually saw the person underneath, they realize that that person would be ashamed of them. They'll realize that that person would ultimately leave them, ghost them, move on, because that person would see underneath the mask the true monster that that person is. And they don't know how to move past that. They don't know how to grow past that, and they don't know how to get better from it. And they never will get better from it until they're actually at the place where they're willing to stop lying. And that's the hardest thing for a narcissist. So it's hard to tell a lot of times with love bombing. Sometimes love bombing actually starts off seeming real, seeming like it's actually going to be like the one or the person. There's other times that love bombing is just purely 100% the entire time just manipulation, going into the relationship or whatever it might be, the purpose of trying to get what you want out of it. It can really go both ways. I've seen it both ways with the narcissist, with people that struggle with narcissistic tendencies. Sometimes it's just completely different, one or the other. Sometimes what will happen, though, is the narcissist will think that it is the one. They'll think that this person gets them, that finally understands them. And then slowly over time, as they start revealing who they actually are, how they're not changing, how they're becoming the mean, awful person that they actually are, once that starts coming out, then all of a sudden it is fake, because they realize they can't keep this facade up anymore. So just because I find out I'm a narcissist and that's stuff that I struggle with, it's not like all of a sudden I just stop lying. And it's not all of a sudden I just stop having those tendencies and those things that like want to pop up like day in, day out. It is a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, sometimes like struggle trying to make sure that I'm not making bad decisions, that I'm not lying, that I'm being transparent, that I'm being honest, that I'm growing. And there's days I succeed at that, there's days that I don't, but the goal is to keep growing and keep moving forward so that I have less and less of those days. So it's really easy to have a bad day, to have a moment where my wife might ask me something and I'll want to lie like instantly, or like instantly something will come out and I'll have to be like, actually, no, that's not true, or actually it was this way, because it's just almost like habit. And right now I'm trying to go back through and retrain those habits, get rid of those habits, get rid of those thoughts that pop up that want to control. So here's the real question that you need to think about is like, if they get a new supply and they look back and they see you or they think about you, the thing is they're not really focusing on the shame. What they're going to have is they're going to have a small tiny bit of guilt, and then they're going to shift that away and move on to the other person and think of the next thing. Yes, they might come back. Yes, they might try to hoover one day. Yes, they might try to see, hey, can I get this person now as my side piece or whatever it might be? But that's just to facilitate their power, their control, that manipulation, to be able to see, do I still have it? Can I still get this person back and then dump them? Can I still get this person to do what I want? All this is a game. Travamon is crazy, and I wish I could say that it always gets easier. It does get easier over time, but step by step, day after day, it still is hard, and it still is a difficult thing to be able to navigate through every single moment. So there's a period in my life when I had put out the person with BPD in my life. I had told her no more. I'd cut communication. I blocked her. I cut her out of my life. She started going on smear campaign, telling everybody, making sure that I lost my job, etc. But there was still that bond there. There was still that trauma bond that I was like, I know this person's toxic. I know I don't want them in my life. I physically don't want them in my life. But I'd find myself picking up the phone, wanting to check their social media. I'd find myself picking up the phone, wanting to send them a message, or wanting to call them, or just wanting to hear from them, or just wanting to see them for a moment, even though I knew it would have been the worst thing in my life to be able to see them again. So if you're ever in the point in any place in your life where you meet a friend, you meet a person, you're in a relationship where they tell you that they have the right to disregard your feelings, that's the time we need to disregard that relationship and start moving on, because your feelings, your emotions are valid. They might not be the best feelings. They might not be the best emotions. They might not even make sense. Doesn't matter. What you're feeling, what you're going through, it's valid to you. That is the perspective that you have. That is the emotions that you are feeling. And if the other person isn't willing to try to meet you there and actually try to figure that out with you, to work with you, to go next step, next level of, hey, how do I help this person navigate these feelings, these emotions that they're having? They're not worth it. Walk away. Someone should never have the right to disregard someone else's feelings. Oftentimes there is an aspect that the narcissist, whenever they're getting married and then ultimately wanting kids, that they're trying to find some semblance of normal. They're trying to find some semblance of order that makes them feel like they're not the broken person that they are. And as a result, it lets them hide and push aside everything that they've been struggling with, whether that's past trauma, whether that's different abuse, whether that's how they abuse other people, whatever it might be. The narcissist a lot of times is trying to think, hey, like next step in my life, if I go and get married, then my life will be normal. If I go ahead and have kids, like maybe my life will be normal. Maybe it'll turn that corner. And what they realize is when they turn that corner, when they get married, when they get kids, it's no different. because they haven't dealt with the root problem, which is themselves, which is what they're dealing with inside, which is their mind, their heart, their actions, their emotions, that all stem from deep down inside. And they have to be able to fix the triggers that cause those to start off with.